Hi everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Jamie and I post lifestyle and finance videos as well as vlogs here on my channel every Sunday. So I was going through all of my DMs recently and I noticed that a lot of the same questions were popping up. So I specifically wanted to address questions about moving to Melbourne or visiting Melbourne, and I find the requests are coming from people who might be planning their upcoming holiday to Melbourne or even planning a permanent move to Melbourne, which is very exciting. So I thought I would go through some of the most common questions that I get. I really hope you find this helpful. If you do, please don't forget to comment and subscribe. So let's just get into it. A very common question that I get is, where should I stay if I'm coming to Melbourne just for a visit? It might be very obvious, but I personally would stay in Melbourne CBD. There's so much to do in the city and you can have the benefits of the free tram zone, which is it's beautiful. It'll be so much easier to get around, especially if you're a foodie and want to try all the different cafes and restaurants. I think you'll be saving money on public transport, even though it's really convenient. I always feel like I'm topping up my keys, so it really adds up. So I think that's a consideration. And also if you're going on bus tours, etc., to go to the regional areas like Great Ocean Road, a lot of those tours have the hotel pickups from areas in the CBD. If you want to explore a little bit just outside of the CBD, maybe it's not your first time in Melbourne and you want to explore the suburban areas a little bit more, I would still stick with the inner city areas like Carlton, Fitzroy, Collingwood. Those areas are really trendy. Those suburbs are filled with all of the food that you want to eat, and there's a lot of stores that you can explore as well. And related to a visit to Melbourne, people ask me, when is the best time to plan a Melbourne holiday? And if you watched my video of the pros and cons of living in Melbourne, you'll have heard me talk about how Melbourne weather is so unpredictable. So look, I would say come in the spring and the summer, but even then, I can't guarantee that you're not gonna need a jacket and an umbrella because there are still very chilly nights in spring and summer. I will say that it's supposed to be spring already and I'm still wearing my North Face jacket outside, so that should tell you something. Whenever you're coming, I would honestly pack an assortment of outfits, and the trick would be to layer up so you're always prepared for whatever Melbourne weather throws at you. Another common question I get is where to find short-term accommodation when you're visiting Melbourne. So obviously there are websites like Agoda and Airbnb that you have probably heard of before, but perhaps you might find that those places are out of your budget. I'd suggest looking at flatmates.com.au. I have personally used it to sublease my apartment when I was going to be away from Melbourne and overseas for 4 weeks. And it worked out well because someone from Hong Kong was planning a 4-week stay in Melbourne, so him and his girlfriend stayed in my apartment. You can definitely find short-term stays on that website. I will just, state the obvious of stranger danger and scams. So, if something looks dodgy and something looks too good to be true, don't trust it, okay? We're not trying to get scammed out here. Just be diligent and ask all of the questions. Another website that you might be able to find a short-term stay is through the Facebook group called Fairy Floss Real Estate. It has 307,000 members, and I see listings up there all the time. For instance, if someone is jet setting on a European holiday and wants someone to, sublease their room for like 2 months, it's a pretty sweet arrangement, and it usually is more affordable than places like Airbnb or Agoda. This is a nice segue to me talking about where to find longer term accommodation. So people ask me, how do I go about apartment hunting? And one of the avenues is through that website, Fairy Floss Real Estate. There are a lot of people in that Facebook group that are asking for housemates or are asking for people to take over their lease. So, trying to do a lease transfer. But again, echoing what I was saying before, do your due diligence, ask all of the questions, inspect the property before you sign up to anything, especially when you might be dealing with, a landlord or a housemate and not going through a real estate agent. I think you just have to be a little bit more wary. So there are also these two other key websites called Domain or Real Estate. So if you go in there, you look through, for your preferred suburbs, you can go through the renting tab and select what you're looking for. So for example, if you want a 2-bedroom apartment with a car park, just put those filters on. They also have mobile apps. So you can also set those app notifications so you'll get notified if a property that matches your search pops up. And again, there are also people on Flatmates who are obviously looking for a housemate for a longer duration, and also people who are requesting people to take over their lease. While we're talking about renting, I wanted to direct you to the Consumer Affairs website and specifically their renting page. It gives a great download on all of your rights and your obligations as a tenant. It gives you some awareness on what a landlord can and cannot do, what a lease entails, all of that. Again, we're not here to get scammed, okay? It's important to know your rights and it's important to know what you're signing up to. So personally, I've only rented and lived in apartments that I found on either Domain or Real Estate, and I've always gone through a real estate agent, and I've never dealt directly with a landlord as a tenant. It's always been through that agent. But I have used Fairy Floss Real Estate when I was living in my first apartment and I was on my first lease. My housemate had to leave, and so to fill her spot and to arrange a lease transfer, we found someone through the Fairy Floss Real Estate Facebook group. And like I said, I used that flatmates.com.au website to find someone to sublease my room while I went on a 4-week holiday, because my name was still on the lease. I was still gonna have to pay. So this was just a way for me to reduce the financial burden while I was on holiday. I've also definitely inspected apartments before I signed up to any lease. So that's a great segue for another common question that I get, which is, what do I look for when I hunt for an apartment? At the top of my list, I would say it's public transport. Because I don't have a car, I am very reliant on public transport to get around, so I always try to live as much as I can near a train station or a tram and be able to walk to particular amenities like, the gym or the groceries. I like being in a very central location, so that is at the top of my list. And then because I'm a light sleeper, I would suss the noise. So for example, am I near a main road? Can I hear the neighbors? And the third priority that I look for in an apartment is the general safety of the location. Because I'm walking out and about even at night by myself, I'm a 5-foot tiny woman. I have to feel safe in the area that I'm living in. So that is something that I'm super, super mindful of. Another very common question I get is how to find a part-time or casual job in Melbourne. So Seek is a very large website where you can find all sorts of different jobs. For example, I just typed in barista and a bunch of listings came up. Or for example, if you're interested in beauty and you want to work at Mecca, which is like Australia's Sephora, I would just go to the Mecca website, look at the careers or jobs page, and see if they have any openings. Now, if you're living in the suburbs in particular, I find, at least in my experience, when I'm walking down a main road of shops and cafes and restaurants, I see so many help wanted signs, for example, for baristas, for wait staff, for front of staff, all of that. So if you're not finding anything online, have a wander down and don't be afraid to take the initiative and just go in there and have a chat to the shop owner and see if they have any positions still available. So speaking of job hunting, if you're thinking about how you can build your resume, I personally use the website Canva for all of my resume needs because they have so many different templates to choose from and they always look profesh. So just a side note there. I wish this was sponsored by Canva. I use it on the daily basis. That is a wrap. I've answered the frequently asked questions that I get in my DMs. I really hope you found this useful. If you did, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps to support my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!